Hello and welcome to the Quever channel. I am Jason, your host. The world is on the brink, we know this. But I don't think people understand just how close we are to actually things going bad. A journalistic author has just released a book within the last few days. You'll see a lot of stuff about it, about nuclear war and that coming up, because Annie Jacobsen has released a book called Scenario for Nuclear War. I've just listened to it all on Audible book over the last couple of days. And from my own research, there's not really anything she gets wrong. We're screwed. Hate to say that, but we are. Let me explain to you the problem, and I'm going to ask a question at the end. First of all, everybody should read that book. Seriously. It's such an eye-opener for the situation and that. It's like the fact that America only has 44 missiles to shoot down incoming ICBMs. Only 44. And the system has been judged as being non-functional. It's got something like a 45% success rate. So remember this. The only primary shield that is available at this moment in time for the continental USA, and this is mirrored by the rest of the world really, is 44 missiles. How many missiles? North Korea has 50 missiles. And nearly everybody else has more than that. It's basically a political and just a feel-good thing to make us feel that good about things like this. There is no winners in nuclear war. You cannot win a nuclear war. There's a lot of things in her book that, and she went to all the right people. She's got so many people where she did her research for all this. We have some of the best, well, America has some of the best early warning radar in there. But the limitation is that just tells you that it's coming. It doesn't stop it. You see, deterrent or mutually assured destruction only works with rational leaders. Think about that. How many leaders of government these days are rational? And how many nuclear powers do we have that are non-rational? Most countries realise and understand that they would never fire a nuclear missile first. They would only respond, except for France, because has in their nuclear doctrine the ability to fire a warning shot at a nuclear weapon. But yeah, apart from that, most of us. But that doesn't count Iran or North Korea. These two don't give a shit. They really don't give a shit. They don't follow Geneva Convention. They don't follow any kind of rational thought when it comes to their nuclear missiles. They are as likely to fire them before as after. They don't care about their people. They think death by holy fire, as long as you scrub the world clean of all the infidels, would be okay. This is not a good thing. And of course, the God King type person of North Korea who believes his own hype. Yeah. So the premise of the book is quite simple. That North Korea decides, for reasons that will come to at the end of the book, when I think of it, when I explain what, not at the end of the book, but the question I'm going to put to you. For their own reasons, they decide that they're convinced that America's going to nuke them into non-existence, that they got no reason to thingy, and so they do a first strike situation. they launch a single ICBM at America. Now, you would think a single ICBM is easy to stop. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's incredibly, incredibly hard to stop. And like I said, the 44 missiles that they have in America to stop it, if it was coming towards them, are, well, 40, 30%. They stopped testing them. They stopped testing them, I think it was 2017, because they basically failed every single test, unfortunately, of stopping it. And this was in lab-based, in perfect scenarios, in perfect situations, that it was also failing. So, yeah. So you got this first hit. I don't think I'm not talking spoilers, but I mean, it's not really a book like it's more this is what's going to happen. So I don't feel bad for actually spoiling the things, because it's not good. It's a nuclear scenario. But the simple fact is, there is a nuclear attack on USA, 2 nuclear missiles actually, and both hit, both hard stopped. And you would think, there's a saying that there's no de-escalation with nuclear war. It's impossible to de-escalate. So the triad, the launch on warning system in America, of course, would respond to this. You have to respond to it. But that's where the world ends. The world ends when that happens, because simply put, and this is the quirk of the situation, let's say North Korea did this and America decided to retaliate, and it went with its options, and it basically went for a decapitation strike on North Korea, taking out all their military to stop them continuing. So that's that. They're sent off. But here lies the problem. Here lies the end of the world. No, that isn't the end of the world. The end of the world is this. For missile, America has an extremely amazing early warning system. Russia also has an early warning system, but it isn't as good. They like to say it's as good, but it isn't as good. It has a lot of errors, and it can see things that aren't there and things and so on, and it can miscount the amount if there was and that. For missiles to get from the USA to North Korea, they have to travel over the North Pole and over Russia. Now, in this scenario that they play out, worst case scenario happens, they try to get in touch with the Russian Premier, they try to get in touch with everybody over there, everybody's scrambling to warn them that these missiles are not coming at you, Russia, they're coming at North Korea. But because this book is written now, at this time, and we've had proof of this recently. I mean, you know, when that missile dropped on Poland, it took the Americans, they couldn't get in touch with their opposites in Russia for 24 hours. They couldn't talk to each other for 24 hours. Nuclear war happens in seconds, in minutes. So the idea that the president couldn't reach out to his opposite end and say, hey, these aren't going for you, these aren't for you, these are just passing over you to hit North Korea because they've just done a really, really, really bad thing. You'd think that'd be easy. No. The chances are that wouldn't happen. And the chances are of, with the current situation, with the paranoia, would Russia believe that they were just passing by? Or was this a first strike decapitation event to take out Russia? Well, in the scenario in the book, The early warning system for Russia mislabels the amount so that it looks as if there's more than would be needed to take out North Korea, and so they believe that America is doing a first strike on them. And you can imagine their response. They basically of course China gets involved. Why does China get involved? Because the nuclear missile attack on North Korea is very close to China. The fallout, hundreds of millions of Chinese people are going to be killed, and China would probably take that as an act of war, even though the attack on North Korea would be justified. They would probably take it badly, and then they may launch. And you've got this situation where, in very logical, simple and basic steps, as you read the book, it shows how, oh shit, that if even one single nuclear missile is launched, de-escalating from that event is almost impossible, and the end of the human species is near certain. So now I'm going to ask you a question here, right at the end. Americans, when you go to the polling station, I'm hoping that you've read this book beforehand. And ask yourself this. Remember when Trump was in power before, how he was having Twitter wars with pretty much everybody in the world, including leaders of radical countries? Do you really want someone like that back in power? You see, the thing is, Trump, the thing with Biden, I'm not a fan of Biden, but at least he's calm. At least he's a calm leader. Ask yourself this. You've seen the rallies. You've seen the way Trump acts. Do you want him in charge of the USA? Not because he can fire nukes. Not because he can do that. But because of the perception of countries like North Korea and Iran. No. What do you think their perception and the threat level to them would be, even if it's purely just because he runs his fucking mouth on Twitter and everything? What do you think the chance of one of those countries committing a first strike event because they're convinced that he would come after them? Even though he wouldn't. Even though it's all bullshit and all bullshit, all his talk is thingy. How much closer, how much more likely for an event where North Korea feels so paranoid that it launches first, or that Iran or anywhere else like that, or feels so threatened by his tweets and his comments that they would act first? And sadly, that's the question you got to ask yourself. That's what it comes down to. What she's done, what Jacobsen has done, is not a political piece, really. She's a Pulitzer Prize winner. The people that she lists at the start of the book, that the research that's been done, basically everything from people from the Manhattan Project in Los Alamos, all the way through to people who've been in the room when Cuban Missile Crisis were going down, all those kind of people. She's talked to all the right people. And she doesn't specifically state the reasons that North Korea would launch, but having a volatile leader in charge of America, a leader who doesn't shut his mouth, no matter how much good it may do for the country or in some ways do things, can the American people, can the world chance this? Everybody should read that book. The description it gives of all of the situations in place around the world, all the different lethal ways. I didn't know that North Korea has one of the biggest fleets of submarines. 40 or 50. These submarines are not nuclear powered. The basic diesel and electric versions, all clunkers basically. But at least a few of them could be fitted out with nuclear missiles and slowly travel across to Los Angeles Bay or somewhere close, and then pop up and go, hello, whoosh, boom. And it is known as a fact now, since 2017, due to research stolen and rocket parts stolen, that North Korea does have ICBM capability. It does have missiles. It is not a fake. They do actually now have nuclear capabilities to hit anywhere on the planet. And it's quite an advanced missile that they have. And it can be launched from a mobile unit, which makes it almost impossible to deal with before it launches. Someone wants to take out all the American Minutemen ICBMs. It's available online. You can see where they are in America, where they're all positioned in that. Because they're in silos. They're not on the back of massive trucks. North Korea has theirs on vehicles and keeps them moving around all the time. Nuclear weapons are stupid. Nuclear weapons are stupid. Any weapon that can destroy the planet you live on, unless you've got another planet to go to, is kind of dumb. I mean, let's face it, it is really dumb. Nuclear weapons are a stupidity, a horrific stupidity. Also found out something in the book that I didn't know. Did you know that up until the 80s and 90s, America fucking classified nearly all of the results of what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Why? Because they wanted the data. Because they wanted to make more effective nuclear weapons. because they wanted to be in charge and wanted to be in a situation where they knew the horrific and could in some ways plan via FEMA and everything. And they didn't want that data getting out to every other country. America knows better than any other country in the world. They took samples. They're the only ones who had they had a second bomber flying behind the one that dropped the bomb, with scientists from Los Alamos, and was taking pictures and film of the actual nuclear attack and that. They're the only ones who have images of that. And they've guarded a lot of this stuff so secretly because they wanted to be the first. They wanted to be the most effective. They wanted to design their nuclear weapons and their ability to deal with a nuclear war better than anybody else. And in doing so, the hard-hitting data that may have caused some people to pause, to hesitate, never got out. The average, I believe that a modern thermonuclear missile hits with something like between, I think it's 100 times more damage than the ones that hit Hiroshima and Nagasaki. What do we do? I don't know. But I tell you what, you do not want volatile leaders in leadership positions. You really don't. You don't. We are in a position where, and deterrent only works if all the parties involved are rational. If to all the parties involved it is unthinkable, and the knowledge that I could shoot you, I could wipe out the entire of America, but I would be wiping out the entire of myself as well. You do not want leaders with a Napoleon complex. You do not want leaders like Kim Jong-un. You do not want people like the Iranian state having nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, you don't. Nuclear weapons are a bad idea. The rationale of them just doesn't work. We only have one planet. It would take very few nuclear missiles. And there's also something else that's approached in the book, which is like, oh, fuck me, yeah. I didn't even realise it. And that is that as part of the Geneva Convention and all that kind of thing, there's rules put in there that say we're not going to use nuclear weapons on a nuclear power station. Ooh, yes, that's a bad thing too. You see. Imagine if, well, think about it this way. If you got a nuclear power station and either it gets hit or you hit close to a nuclear power station with a nuclear weapon, it will destroy all of the cooling facility and all of the control rods. It will vaporize them, basically. And what you will be left with is the China syndrome. It will basically melt all down to the center of the earth. It will just keep going. It will self-feed as a reactive fire. Oh boy, yes, things like that. And the problem is places like North Korea and that, They don't give a shit about the Geneva Convention. They do not give the shit about anything like that. They don't have any rules of law. They don't have any "we won't fire first" doctrine. I think everybody fucking needs to read that book. A Nuclear Scenario by Annie Jacobsen. Really needs to. Every fucking leader should. And everybody sleepwalking into a election needs to fucking read that book. Americans think they're protected. They think they've got a thing. The problem is, most of their... The funny thing is, and it isn't a funny thing, really, most of their Aegis missile defence, the waterborne, ship-based defence against nuclear missiles, and that, they're all elsewhere in the world protecting all America's assets out there. How the hell can Americans sleep at night? It's like knowing they only have 44 missiles defending their entire land, country, against a nuclear attack, and the system doesn't even have a 40 or 50% kill ratio in best case scenario. See, what happens is this, from what I understand, and this is the down and dirty. Someone launches an ICBM. Now, the flare of the launch is picked up by the early warning radar, and boom, 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 just the alert goes out. But unfortunately, unless you're in a specific position, there was a plan put in place. If you could have something like 50 or so of the really big, there was a plan put in place for 50 of the really big Reaper drones, hang them out in that area, not on over North Korea, but around close to North Korea, and if a missile is launched, they would have seconds, maybe 20-30 seconds to intercept that missile before it got beyond. But you'd have to keep them going all the time, and it'd cost a lot of money to keep them there. But because of the position and the peninsula and the way North Korea is, it's in a position where it's very hard to stop them, and the way they move their stuff around. So, if you don't get it within that first little bit, then it goes into, it shuts off the engine and coasts ballistic. ICBM. Ballistic missile goes up into the upper atmosphere type thing, and during that time it's almost impossible to stop, because it's not giving off any heat. It's just coasting. Then you get to the point where the front port breaks open, and however many nuclear missiles, just because it's one nuclear missile going up does not mean there's only one warhead. The warheads will separate. Now you can have, let's call it 10 warheads. 8 of them might be dummies. They'll look like a warhead, they'll act like a warhead, and they'll fool your missiles coming in to stop them. But they're not. They're just dummies. And this is what the missile does. And then they come down towards the planet. And if you don't hit them at this point about here, I think it is around, which is where all the things targeting, it's basically like trying to hit a bullet with a bullet. It isn't an explosion, it isn't a flak attack, because the distances are too much for that. It's basically a launch vehicle for the interceptor missile. It comes up to here. When it gets to the right position, by all the satellites have told it, predicted where the missile is. This missile's traveling thousands of miles, and this missile is traveling at 15,000 miles, and they're coming towards each other like this. It's a crazy situation. And then the front will open up, and the kill vehicle will launch. Now, the kill vehicle is a kinetic strike vehicle type things. It's not an explosion. It's basically this bullet's got to hit this bullet and smash it. Doesn't need an explosion because you'll just smash it and destroy it. Imagine the math. Imagine the chances of failure. Imagine it. And this is why it doesn't actually work. It's really hard to do that. Even in a thing, you're shooting a bullet at a bullet. But even worse. And so after that point, there's nothing you can do to stop it. You probably think, what about all the it's all bullshit. Most of the defences we have against these things. This is why we say a nuclear war, you can't de-escalate it, and you can't call your missiles back. But you really, really want calm heads inside the big nuclear powers, because otherwise we are so absolutely fucked. So yeah, you're going to see a lot of stuff about this because it's on all the news thingies. People are freaking out about it. And that's good. That's good. What she's written is not fear-mongering, not worst-case scenario, but just a scenario in a situation where what's called a bolt out of the blue attack that wasn't expected. And it just shows just how FC UK'd we are, and how we need to keep our leaders de-escalated. And if you have any other worries about this, there's a couple of films out there. There's The Day After, which is an American one, which is famously one that Ronald Reagan watched when it came out and changed his stance on nuclear war, because before this point, America had something like 70,000 nuclear missiles. It was crazy, 70,000 nuclear missiles, just had been creating more and more and more nuclear missiles. It doesn't matter, they only needed about 100 to destroy the planet. They had 70,000 freaking nuclear missiles out there. And so they de-escalated to down around 12,000, which is a great de-escalation, but now we're building back up. Unfortunately, we're now building back up because of the Russia situation, because of the world situation, and we think, hey, we need our nuclear missiles again. No, you don't. If every country just had like 100 nuclear missiles, they could end the world. That's the crazy shit about all of this. So there's The Day After, which is a very Americanized one, and there's a UK one called Threads. Now, I'll warn you about Threads. It's available on YouTube, Threads is, and I believe everybody should watch it, but at the same time, it's going to give you nightmares. And it's going to make you question a lot of things. Nuclear weapons, the biggest fucking piece of shit and stupidity that the human race has ever created. It should never have been allowed to happen.